Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining us for today's IBM Community webinar. Please welcome Michael Thompson, the lead product manager for WebSphere Automation. You should see a Q&A box directly on your screen where you could begin to submit your questions. Later today, you'll be sent the on-demand recording along with a link to the Global Security Forum community where you can connect directly with our experts. So without further ado, please welcome Michael.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be back with the community. I think this will probably be a short presentation today. We really wanted to just share some of the upcoming news around WebSphere Automation's deliveries in this fourth quarter of 2022. So we will talk a little bit about roadmap things. Remember, these are forward-looking statements. Nothing is official until it's actually released. But I did want to share with you sort of our intent and directions about what'll be coming in October, November. So just by way of setting some ground framework, some reference, we know because we've been talking to you, the community, what the business challenges are that are facing your mission critical WebSphere applications. That can really be broken down into three main categories. Growing complexity, right? Whether that is from embracing cloud and containers, digital transformation, a variety of different reasons. We know that things are more complicated than they ever have been. That complexity is a real challenge for operations teams, especially when you're asked to pay attention to all of those things. Kind of at the exact same time, we see an acceleration in security risks. Log4j at the end of last year was a really good example of how a very serious vulnerability can manifest very, very quickly and require immediate action by the team. In order to do that, you need access to real-time, reliable information about your environment so you can reason about what is secure and what is not. And then last but not least, the ever-present challenge of people resources, right? Skilled, knowledgeable people, especially knowledgeable people are at a premium. And when you combine those three things together, it creates a particularly challenging environment for operations teams, which are always being asked to do more with less. So WebSphere Automation has focused on three primary use cases that we'll be expanding on as we go into next year and beyond. So proactive CVE protection is kind of our primary use case. This was built specifically because we know customers are having a challenge staying on top of these number of vulnerabilities, whether it is simply assessing what your environment is and where your vulnerabilities are, or and very often is also a challenge of deploying fixes. WebSphere Automation can help you stay on top of the latest vulnerabilities because we know how impactful those can be. Actually, a recent IBM study showed that the average cost of a data breach in a financial services company is almost $6 million. And one of the best ways to stay on top of and stay ahead of bad actors is to keep your systems up to date with the latest patches so that known vulnerabilities cannot be exploited. What WebSphere Automation is giving you as part of this proactive CVE protection is peace of mind with immediately actionable insights. So as soon as WebSphere is up and running and you've got your WebSphere servers registered, you can see from a single dashboard all of your servers, what their vulnerability statuses are. You can see what those vulnerabilities are across the organization, so you can know how many servers are impacted by a given CVE. You can take that information, you can drill into it, and you can ultimately deploy the fix so that you can resolve those issues. And that's what WebSphere Automation gives you today at your fingertips. It also gives you the ability to reduce your time to resolution in memory leaks. We know memory leaks are a notoriously hard problem to resolve. Very often teams will simply put a Band-Aid on it and do a nightly restart or some sort of regular recurring maintenance activity just to alleviate the problem without ever really addressing the underlying root cause. And if that traffic sees a spike in an unanticipated way, that memory leak can manifest very quickly. It can cause the system to crash, disrupt user experience, and all the rest. So WebSphere Automation integrates with Instana to give the operations teams insights about where those memory leaks are occurring. It does this by integrating with Instana, where Instana is the thing observing the WebSphere environment, but then when Instana detects the JVM is sick, it can notify WebSphere Automation so it can take actions, provide insights to the operator. And what that really looks like is a summary report of not only the gathered diagnostic information, but also the analyzed results. So you can see very, very quickly where the culprit is, what is the source of the memory leak in this JVM. So that way you can offload these manual analysis tasks and data gathering tasks, let the system provide this automated reaction. That way, the operations teams are freed up from needing to be either on call or responsive to alerts and notifications coming from your APM system. At the heart of what WebSphere Automation does is it helps track inventory. It does this because we know, well, two things. Number one, WebSphere Automation, in order to do what it does, needs to know about your environment. And we actually were surprised to learn when we were talking to customers and designing WebSphere Automation that a lot of this information today is manually tracked. So whether that's in a spreadsheet or a database, there is a person involved in updating those records. And as those things change, you can end up getting out of sync with your data. Data maintenance is kind of a pain point. So what WebSphere Automation does automatically is it tracks this information at a glance, and it stays up to date. So that same dashboard that we showed that shows your overview and your server assets, that information stays up to date as things change, whether you deploy a patch using WebSphere Automation or some third-party tool or custom homegrown script. WebSphere Automation stays up to date, stays current, and that information is exportable. You can dump it to a spreadsheet. You can access it via REST APIs. There's a variety of ways of getting to your data so that you can use it and reason about your environment. WebSphere Automation fits within the overall WebSphere portfolio. WebSphere Hybrid Edition is our lead with offering. That's where you go and get access to the Liberty runtime and the traditional runtime, the modernization tools like Cloud Transformation Advisor and Monado Micro. And WebSphere Automation sits alongside those things because its purpose in life is to help free up the routine care and feeding of WebSphere environments, wherever they're deployed, whether that's on premises, in the cloud, in VMs, in containers, or recently within embedded products. WebSphere Automation can help manage the WebSphere application servers that you use today. So we normally talk about our anticipated delivery roadmap being very, very visionary in sort of intent and purpose. We are working on cloud native automation. So WebSphere Automation's focus to date has been more on existing environments, WASND primarily, although Liberty and WebSphere Base standalone, those are all included, helping you manage the environments that you have today. We know that an increasing number of customers are moving to cloud, moving to containers. WebSphere Automation will grow alongside you and deliver cloud native automation. And we know that there are very common problems that we see come through our support network around WebSphere. So we've been talking about assisted problem determination as a way of eliminating or alleviating some of that manual effort that goes along with running and really performing day two operations. So let's take a look at what we're delivering on the near-term horizon. Please remember that all of these dates and content, this represents our internal planning. These things are subject to change. But to give you a sneak peek on what's coming, in the third quarter, in September, we published an update to our support policy for WebSphere Automation. We now support WebSphere Application Server and WebSphere Liberty when it's embedded in other products like Maximo, Portal, and FileNet. We actually just released a blog article today talking about that support and why that support is so impactful for embedded products, because generally they have a kind of a more protracted life cycle and maintenance phase than perhaps WebSphere standalone does. So that's what we delivered in the third quarter. What we're planning to do in the fourth quarter is in November, we intend to deliver WebSphere Automation 1.5. As part of that, there are a few changes that'll be coming. One, we will be able to support WebSphere Automation deployed to Z-Linux. We already support managing WebSphere app server deployed to Z-Linux, z/OS, and all the distributed environments. However, support for actually deploying WebSphere Automation itself to an OpenShift cluster on Z-Linux will be delivered in November. We're also addressing some changes in the underlying Kubernetes that goes along with that. So OpenShift 4.11, I believe it is, adds in some community Kubernetes changes that address how service accounts are managed. That'll be delivered as part of that as well. And we'll be providing support for uninstall of WebSphere Automation applied iFixes and fix packs, something we did not contain in the initial release, but has been very popular request in the community and customers that I speak with. As we look into next year, there's a few things that we are tracking as potential content. I'd be very interested in hearing your feedback on this. If you're part of the customer advisory board, that's a great way to get engaged and sort of put your finger on the scale and help us decide where we should be looking and prioritizing. But in the near term, very likely at the start of next year, we're going to focus on a few key things. Number one, simplifying the dependencies of WebSphere Automation. We know that there's quite a few dependencies that we bring in today. We're hoping that through that work, we can simplify our form factor and our dependencies in terms of total resources, but also position us to potentially support non-OpenShift Kubernetes deployments. That's been a very common request that I've seen from customers and in the community. No particular dates associated with any of this, but that is a direction that we're actively evaluating. And then we also know that there's some functional characteristics that have been asked for. Things like installing fix packs and iFixes to standalone Liberty installations, one that are done with the archive install instead of installation manager. Support for things like swinging profile. We know that swinging profile, where you have your WebSphere installation separated from your WebSphere configuration, is not widely adopted, but where it is, it's very beneficial. We have specific customer scenarios requesting for that, so that's something that we're tracking in our roadmap. And then other qualities of service, like scheduling a deployment time for patches, integrating with ServiceNow, potentially built on a generic framework. And then, as we talked about in this sort of more visionary direction, the cloud native automation and support for primarily Liberty, although very likely traditional WebSphere as well, in those cloud native and containerized environments. And then lastly, but not least, we also have areas that we'd like to expand in the memory leak and generic health dimension. We are actively working on defining where some automated must gather may be doable so that common problems like expiring certificates or hung JVMs can be automatically analyzed, potentially corrected by WebSphere Automation, and then integration with other APM solutions, not just Instana, such as Dynatrace and AppDynamics. Those are very popular requests as well. So just to circle back on what's coming in the upcoming releases, it'll be support for uninstall action as well as support for Z-Linux. And we see additional capabilities sort of in plan or potentially in plan as part of the first half of next year. And that really is the update that we wanted to share today. The reason that we are talking about WebSphere Automation, the reason that WebSphere Automation exists is because automation is a key element of success in those modern environments. WebSphere Hybrid Edition with WebSphere Liberty helps you build your applications, helps you deploy anywhere, whether that's in the major cloud of your choice, on-prem, VMs, and containers. WebSphere is supported everywhere. And then WebSphere Automation helps alleviate that ongoing day two maintenance cost by reducing the overall operations team's effort, helping you stay secure, helping you stay up to date. And as we develop and expand more use cases, helping you maintain the overall health of your application. So if you want to try out WebSphere Automation, and I highly encourage this, you can check it out in less than an hour by trying our hosted trial. If you go to ibm.biz/WSA trial, you simply sign up with your IBM ID and you get logged into a real running instance of WebSphere Automation. You get some servers already allocated, and it walks you through with easy to follow instructions on how to actually use WebSphere Automation and follow the various use cases. If you'd like to try this out in your own environment, we absolutely support that too. Reach out to me or your account team, and we'll help you get set up for an on-premises evaluation. And with that, I'm going to say thank you for the time today. I really appreciate all the questions and the feedback that we get from the community. And if there are any questions in the chat today, we can field those now.
So, Michael, you have one question. Does WebSphere Automation, with all its current features, is that available for WebSphere on ZOS?
Yes, that is a great question. I'm glad you asked that. So WebSphere Automation today installs on, at present, distributed or X platform architecture. It does support today WAS on ZOS and WAS for Z-Linux. What we'll be adding in November is the optional deployment of WebSphere Automation itself to the Z-Linux architecture. So in November, we'll have the ability to deploy WebSphere Automation onto either x86 architecture or S390X, the Z-Linux architecture. However, WebSphere Automation itself can already manage your WebSphere that's deployed on ZOS, Z-Linux, X, Power, really wherever supported WebSphere deployment is today, we can support those with the present capabilities. So thanks for the question. Thank you.
And that's the only one we got so far.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you again. Please stay engaged with us. The community is always a great way to hear your feedback and let us know what's going on and what you're thinking about. And with that, I think we can end the call today. So thanks and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you to our presenter. Just a few reminders, we will email the on-demand recording and slides to you later on today. There will also be a link to connect directly with our experts from the IBM community. This concludes today's webinar. Thanks for joining us around the globe, and we hope you have a great day.
Take care, all.